We're back now with much more on the passing of George Michael. The singer was only 53 years old, and he was found dead in his home in England over the holidays.
The pop superstar dying at such a young age after a number of tough battles throughout the years.
Wake me up before you go.
From his start as one half of Wham!
Yes, I gotta have faith. I gotta have faith.
To his breakthrough as a solo superstar, George Michael reached the pinnacle of the music industry.
Well, I need someone to hold me, but I wait for something more.
But as his popularity soared throughout his decades-long career, so did his personal struggles. In 2008, Michael opening up to ABC News about his years-long battle with depression.
It was like depression and shock that just went on for years. It was a very eventful and bizarrely dark period for me that I actually thought was going to go on forever.
While another battle with drugs would lead to several arrests in the late 2000s and a month-long jail stint in 2010 that Michael says helped him shake his demons. Telling People magazine in 2014, "I realized it had to be something to do with me. It shook me out of my denial." But in recent years, the pop icon hospitalized in 2011 with a near-fatal case of pneumonia.
I spent the last 10 days since I woke up literally thanking people for saving my life, which is something I've never had to do before, never want to have to do again.
The superstar keeping faith throughout.
I gotta have faith.
So let's bring in Dr. Jen Ashton and People magazine executive editor Kate Coyne. Welcome back to both of you. Dr. Jen, what are doctors going to be looking for when they perform an autopsy here?
So a lot of things, because remember, they're saying the cause of death is unexplained, even though they're attributing it to heart failure, meaning the heart just stopped, obviously, is the final event. So in a general postmortem or autopsy, organ system by organ system, large organs, and then microscopic analysis. They will do a toxicology, but really the big push today is to do something called a molecular autopsy, where they'll take tissue samples, do genetic analysis, and find out if he possibly had an inherited gene that could lead to sudden cardiac death, which would be relevant for his surviving relatives.
And that's a molecular autopsy.
Yeah.
All right, Kate, I know that you covered George Michael for years. Then I want to talk specifically about a time in his life. It was the late 90s, and he was outed. How tough of a time was that for him?
I think it was really unprecedented because, obviously there are a lot of gay entertainment figures, but for someone like George Michael, at the peak of his career, he was a heartthrob as a perceived heterosexual. I mean, I Want Your Sex and all the songs during the Faith era. I mean, he was at screaming teenage girls. I was one of them. I was absolutely one of them. And so to then, have it shown to the world, it had been rumored, yes, but to have to publicly confirm that, yes, he was a gay man, he had to face the idea that maybe did this somehow negate all of the songs that he had written, that people had perceived had been written about a woman. And I think ultimately, he did grapple with it. It was an issue. I think it did unfortunately have something of an impact on his career. He never quite reached the same heights that he had with Faith. And yet by the same token, he was unfailingly brave and courageous in the face of that incident. He was very clear that his songs were always written from the heart. And as one of those screaming teenage girls, I can tell you, it didn't change anything for me, because those songs weren't written for a man or a woman. They were written for me, as far as I was concerned.
Exactly.
So they were amazing.
And you talk about writing, and in this day and age, so many singers out there have songwriters. They have producers doing all that work, but he wrote all of his material?
He wrote all of his material. I mean, I think his contributions as a composer cannot be overlooked, because he was a tremendous songwriter, just unbelievable. Every song on Wham's albums were written by George Michael. All of his solo work written by George Michael. He was really an incredible talent.
And a lot of people don't know this, but before she got her medical degree, Dr. Ashton was one of those screaming teenagers as well.
I was right there with Kate.
We were at the Meadowlands, right? The Faith concert. I thought I saw you.
Thank you both. Really appreciate your expertise this morning.